Dunk and Egg have a series of scenes of them being Dunk and Egg. And then villainous things happen. And then Dunk and Egg have more scenes of them being Dunk and Egg. And then Dunk learns the egg he thought he knew is someone else entirely after some more villainous moments. All that and more on this episode of History of Westeros podcast. Hello and welcome, everybody. Episode 3 is now in the books, so to speak, and we're here to talk about it. It's the Squire. Our breakdowns are every Monday at 6. A little bit of a difference this week, though. We're still here at 6 today on Monday, but we will not be there at 5:30 on Friday for a preview episode because of the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is this Sunday, and that means HBO is releasing the episode early. It's going to hit at 3 in the morning on Friday. Is it 3 in the morning Saturday or 3 in the morning?
3 in the morning Friday Eastern.
In the morning, meaning like
yes, like
as in Thursday
Friday
night.
morning, Thursday night. Okay, yes.
So it'll, in other words, be out before we even normally have our review episode. And it's a bit too quick of a turnaround for us to do that all in this 1 week. So we will get back to the normal schedule the week after, I presume, assuming everything else is back to normal on HBO's end. But we still have our game stream, the 6 at Friday, Dunk and Egg game stream. Sean, looks like not only do you have a drink, but you have a cat.
I do. I usually close the door when I'm recording, and I took a chance and didn't close it. And sure enough, immediately, cat in my lap. I hope you guys can deal with that.
Which one's that? Is that Cora?
It's tough.
That's tough. Oh, there she is now. I can see better now. Okay.
This is too much.
What a good girl.
Some purring. I hear some purring on the audio.
Those are such sweet cats. They're like so affectionate. I love it.
They are. Can I say real quick?
You should.
Well, can I try to? That, in my notes here, whenever I take notes, I usually have like a little entry for, each scene and maybe a highlight moment, something I kind of expected we'll talk about. But sometimes I have maybe my own unique hot take or something I'm really enthused about. And I put a little asterisk next to those. I have more asterisks than anything so far. So I have like several different things I'm excited to talk about.
Hell yeah. Yeah, me too. This was my favorite episode so far, the 3 pretty easily. And we'll get to talk about it in just a moment here. If you have questions for us, go ahead and hit us up here live in the video or comment afterwards or hit us up at westeroshistory@gmail.com. You can find us on pretty much any social media site. We have a trivia question to start and then a poll. And then we'll talk about our favorite moments and characters before the analysis. The trivia question is, how old is Aerion Targaryen, in the year 209, which is the year we're in for both book and show? We don't actually have a precise age. I'll give you that caveat. So you have a 3-year range to guess within. If you can guess his age within those 3 years. So there's 3 correct answers, basically. And I will reveal it at the end, but it'll also come up during the course of the episode. Now here's our poll. YouTube, of course, only allows 4 choices. So that was very difficult because I made this poll, what were your favorite Dunk and Egg moments? And there were so many. And that's part of why I was able to make a poll of it. But it's just so hard to pick. Here is what we did. Some of these aren't exactly the same scene. Well, one of them isn't. The rest are. They were just linked by what the topic was. Anyway, the first choice is Westeros Hello Operator, which is linked to the sewing scene. Then we have breakfast sandwiches and them doing impressions of each other. Those technically aren't the same scene, but they're very much linked. Next, we have breaking down Three-Fingered Alice, the analysis of that song. And then we have the retirement plan scene talking about, raising peas and marrying the second most beautiful daughter and all that stuff. And with the line, I could be quite happy in a place like this. You are in a place like this. That line. So that's really hard to choose from. So we'll get to that in just a second. Now, Sean, it's time for you to say what your favorite scene was, and then we'll follow up.
There are a lot of great contenders, but if I can pick one, it was maybe more of a moment than a scene. When Dunk is trying to get the goose eggs and not the goose, and he's demonstrating, and Tansel walks by and he tries to say, "Hey, do you like goose eggs?" She's like, "I'll have your shield ready." She's kind of, you see her smiling, but a little weirded out. And as they walk away, Egg is like, "Ooh, ooh." That was my favorite scene.
Nice. What about you, Ashaya? Oh, Shay's not ready, so I'll do mine. I loved breaking down the song Alice with Three Fingers. I thought that was an amazing scene, not just because it was hilarious and it's the kind of thing like we nerds love to do, like talk about songs and like break down the lyrics. It's the kind of song that you wouldn't think necessarily someone would do that with, but it's more than that. It's not just comedy. This is who Egg is. Egg thinks about the commoners. He talks to a horse in a way that's the opposite of how his father taught him to do it. So he is very mindful of these sort of things, and he wants to know. He's curious about these sort of things. It's very much character building for him, and it was combined with some great comedy, which I think the show is doing a lot of, but that was a particularly excellent example of that. Oh, Shay's got it on screen here, the Manfred and Lionel singing Alice with Three Fingers. And your choice, Shaya.
My favorite is the Westerosi Hello Operator, Egg's little schoolyard rhyme. I always liked Miss Susie as a rhyme as a kid. I used to do the little hand clapping game, so I was really tickled to see a version of it, and a version that had such lore. And that scene was kind of also part of the scene with Dunk teaching Egg how to sew, which I really thought was a beautiful character beat, in terms of Dunk threatening him and then deciding to go the other way, and he softens and then he just teaches him something. And so it was just kind of bundled together with like a really funny scene and a really heartwarming scene for me.
That's a great analysis. I love that scene too. It's another example of comedy combined with real character moments, real character building, and in this case, lore. Which the Alice with Three Fingers, maybe not so much lore in that one, unless you're really interested in Alice with Three Fingers lore, in which case it's got quite a few. I thought another theme of this episode was the effect of parenting and how, especially Maekar, particularly Maekar, the effect of Maekar's parenting. Daron is a big part of this episode, even though he's not present, because Maekar is gone searching for him. And then Arian, of course, acts differently when Maekar isn't there. So that's a big deal, too, because of these combination of factors. But it's also Dunk being both a better father and a better brother to Egg than he's had. Like, can you imagine one of his brothers teaching him to sew? Maybe one of his sisters would. Now, that I could see. But even that, I'm not sure, then he risks his father finding out, and his father would be like, I don't do that, All right, so let's talk about favorite performance. Oh, yeah, go ahead. You have a comment on that?
A quick comment on each of your favorite scenes. I wanted to say for Egg's kind of breakdown of that song, especially considering another moment in this episode, I bet, not to take away from his cleverness and contemplating it all, but I bet the Egg heard at least a piece of his analysis there from someone else. And I base that, one, on like it is pretty high thoughts for such a young kid, but also the way Raymond Fossaway later says, I heard that one bit from Stefan. Like he had all his thoughts ready to go and these Targaryens, but at least pieces of that he heard. Probably the whole crowd, everyone was reacting in that moment to never mind conversations in the past. I bet Egg has heard that song before, heard people talk about it.
I don't think so. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I strongly disagree. Egg has never heard this particular song, and this is just Egg, self-actualizing into a person, like growing up and taking, reflecting, showing reflection on something. I don't know how else to put it, but I think it shows how intelligent and advanced for his age he is. I don't think he heard any of those things from someone else.
Yeah, I do want to clarify that even with my little theory, I don't want to take away from his intelligence. For him to hear someone else with one of those thoughts, retain it, and think to tell Dunk. And also, I don't think all those thoughts came from somewhere else, just a piece of it, and then it spurred him to think out more. Regardless, my thought on the other scene was almost exactly what you guys started to say, is that Dunk, I think, didn't react the way Arlen would have. You know what I mean? Dunk had this instinct to be mad at Egg, to cloud him in the ear. But he's like, actually, come here, let me teach you. You know what I mean? And maybe a little bit. Probably Arlen every now and then did think a second time and teach Egg something or teach Dunk something. But yeah, I also do think that we're going to see maybe a theme of Dunk's growth over Dunk being a better caregiver than his caregiver was.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to frame it, because I was focusing more on Egg's side of the parenting, where you're bringing up Sir Arlen, which is a really good point. Also, just the whole idea, I agree with that. The sewing scene at that moment, I think, was super important. That is kind of like when they really become Dunk and Egg. To me, that if there's any moment where the the tipping point happens, it's that moment. But let's talk about our favorite performances now. We've got plenty more on all these topics throughout the episode, but we're also excited to talk about so many things about this particular episode because it was so good. Sean, your favorite performance?
Sorry, I had a cat in my face. It's kind of nuanced, and it again, there's sort of the low hanging fruit because Egg is stealing the show. But I'm gonna say Arian. I think that he did a good job with what could have been very over the top. You know what I mean? I think he's doing a good job of being, I don't know how to, sinister, right? He's clearly a villain, but he's not. He's not going wild and yelling, and the things he's doing are, I don't know, reserved, controlled. It almost makes him more sinister when you realize he's really thinking out what he's doing. You know what I mean? He's not just wildly emotionally reacting. He's calm and cool here, and it almost makes it more scary and more evil.
I totally agree. I was going to say Arian if you didn't, or if Ishaya didn't, so I have more thoughts on him later, but I very much agree with what you're saying there, Sean. What about you, Ishaya?
I'll pick the low-hanging fruit in Egg, I suppose. It was his episode, It was named The Squire predominantly for him, not entirely for him, right? But I just thought it was a great showcase for him. It showed him having a dogged spirit, as it were, at the very beginning with working with the horse, with Thunder, right? It showed a little bit of a musical talent in his rhyming. No, but it also showed him looking really haunted and a dark edge to him, and when he's very scared by the prophecy and by Arian. And some of that is the makeup work as well, how they gave him those big eye bags underneath. But just the general performance, they gave him really big range here. Oh, and at the very end when he is really commanding and he's a young royal, right? So this is meant to be his showcase if there ever was one, and he did a great job.
Ashaya, did you notice on that low-hanging fruit that you picked that there were some black hairs going out of it?
Dunk might say that's weird now that he knows Egg has
it's like, why aren't they
hair.
Silver hairs?
Yeah, exactly.
More than one weird thing about it.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say either Egg or Arian if y'all didn't. So we're very much linked here. I'd say Egg. Like if episode 1 was really Dunk's episode, and episode 3 is really Egg's episode, if it's anyone's, right? And I think that's a fair way to put it. I'll say Raymond. He was the other Squire here. I've been fond of him all season long. I thought his scenes from this episode were very much in line with the book, but they added a few parts, and he acted them out really well. They expanded on it just a little bit, but also kept the important parts to the book and changed very little, just added some. And so I've been fond of him all season. He's the other Squire, and I'll pick him. The episode begins with Egg waking up early to train. He's staring at Duncan, and he's probably thinking about the things that he was thinking about last episode, about whether he's capable enough. But he certainly isn't daunted. So the Squire title's in motion right away. And that's pretty cool. Now, interesting point here. We had our review episode, which not all y'all watch, but we talked about what we thought the Squire would mean. We certainly predicted Egg and Raymond. And I neglected to consider that Dunk, of course, was a Squire till recently. It's a kind of an obvious overlap. Someone pointed that out and was like, hey, what about more stuff about Dunk as a Squire? Which I thought, oh, yeah, of course. But actually, that really wasn't here. It could have been an opportunity for that, but it didn't happen. So anyway.
Yeah, you're right. They could have had another parallel, and they didn't show any flashbacks of him at all in this one. But they did show a couple of flashbacks.
Yeah, they just weren't Dunk. Yeah.
Yeah, I really loved this opening shot where it pans over from Dunk asleep to Egg waking up, because it really puts the viewer in Egg's shoes. You're like, oh, we're following Egg. Dunk is asleep, right? And then it has the editing of the horse sound with Egg making the horse sound right to the title card, which I thought was to very humorous effect, which shows just like how good the editing is here for humor, especially, I think.
I want to follow up. I want to say I totally agree with you, Shay. I really appreciated that opening sequence, and the editing made it. But also, I want to point out something I think was probably intentional. Right at the beginning, right at the beginning it's on Dunk, but as it moves over to Egg and he's on his side, you see, it's hard to see, but the flicker of flame in his eyes, which I don't think is accidental. I think that they had to get that frame just right to get that little orange reflection of the fire in his eyes. Which I think, symbolic of many potential things. Yeah.
That's a good catch. I totally didn't notice that. I don't think Ashay did either. That's good.
I also want to say that I think this shot of Egg and Thunder in the forest is one of my favorite shots in any of the 3 shows ever. It's definitely wallpaper worthy.
Yeah.
I would struggle to name a top 10, but I do think for me this makes it in its simplicity and its beauty. It's really stunning.
House of the Dragon has a few shots like this, but I'm not sure they had one that was quite this good. I got to agree. Let's talk about Thunder and Egg, or as I call it, Thunder Egg, because there is a thing called Thunder Egg Stones. And also we just talked about Stones, a different context. So one of my favorite bands is called Clutch, and they have a song called Sink 'em Low, which refers to Thunder Egg Stones. It's a real thing. It's like a type of geode, and they're particularly common in Oregon. Anyway. That's just an aside. So Egg's building a relationship with Thunder. He's running about holding the heavy weapons of a knight and a squire and trying to get Thunder to get on his page with the importance of their job. And they have that great conversation. It's him revealing things about his father and his own upbringing at the same time as character building for himself and having this warm moment with the horse. The horse nodding was so hilarious. It's just because the nods were so big too. He's like, yeah, we do not like being ordered around. Thank you. Yes.
I almost wondered they were pushing that so hard. And to be clear, I don't think it's going to make any impact in the show or probably the series, or at least the books we know so far. But were they trying to allude to some kind of skin changer vibe? Does Egg have some supernatural Targaryen power to communicate with animals? You think there was...
Okay, I don't think that really, but I did see another not counterpoint, but related point to that, in that someone brought up that Maekar said that because he knows to be aware because Blood Raven and stuff. I also don't think that's why Maekar said that, but I like where your head's at in both of those cases to keep that in mind, that is a thing people can do. We know Blood Raven could do it.
You have to think that because Maekar says things like horses are dumber than dogs, the only thing they understand is the crop, which means riding crop, of course.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't have very enlightened opinions about humans either. You know what I mean? But Egg does. Egg is different, and that's part of a theme, is that Egg hasn't actually been parented very much by Maekar, and of course his mother's dead, so he couldn't have been parented a whole lot by her either. And he's got a lot of his own ideas, but Dunk is really filling in a lot of those gaps for him as well. So I'm glad they both had their own talking to horses scenes, and it goes really well for both of them. Let's talk about Sir Robin Risling. This is played by a man named William Houston. I'm not sure I've ever seen him before. Maybe I have. He's clearly a veteran. Doesn't seem like this is his first acting gig.
I think he looks just like Jefferson Hall or Tywin Lannister in House of the Dragon.
He's just a little bit older, yeah.
Yeah, I really like that look.
Yeah. He's described in the book as a grizzled old knight with a salt and pepper beard and a missing eye. Ding! Okay, that's exactly what that man is. So I like how Egg isn't the only one up early. They're getting in some work. He's walking around, just taking a walk. He doesn't have. They're both barefoot, by the way. It's Egg is. They talk about that in the behind the scenes, that Egg is barefoot for all those scenes. But you can see Robin Risling walking up barefoot too.
Would you say they're both competing for the rawest dog?
Oh, the rawest dog.
Dragon.
That's right.
As always, Sonny would say.
So I love the question, what happened to your hair? What happened to your eye? Sets up the quick flashback scene. Also, it's another... Sir Robin Risling is roughly the opposite of Sir Robin from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. One guy does everything he can to avoid violence. The other guy's like, give me more. I'm right here for it. The book versions of his... and most jousts weren't shown. My only real complaint about this episode. In the book, he does challenge Leo Longthorn, and they have a back and forth, and he loses his helm, and he still doesn't yield without his helm, even though he's got one eye. So they're like, whoa. So this is kind of the fuel for the show version of him being the, quote, maddest knight in the Seven Kingdoms, which that's not necessarily true in the novella, but whatever. It's not true either. So
in the book, if I may, if I remember, Dunk was shocked that when he lost his helmet, he kept riding, because that's how he had lost his eye, was from a splinter of a lance, right? And now he got no helmet, and he's still going. Didn't he learn his lesson? And Dunk wonders if it's bravery or what is the word he used? Foolhardy, folly. Is it bravery or folly? Yeah.
A little more, a little of both, maybe.
Another couple quick notes I want to make before we get too far away from it. I think that Pummel. What's the name of the tournament master?
Plumber,
thank you. I think he looks like Loras from House of the Dragon, by the way, which is, if you agree with me at all, that would be 3 different people that look just like someone from Game of Thrones.
Can I tell you what I was just thinking, Sean? I think he looks like you before you had your beard.
Oh, Plumber does?
Yeah. Back before you had your beard. I swear I could pull up a picture of you where you'd see it so clearly.
Another thought I want, just a quick one. When Egg was kind of running around, a lot of it, he was like, prepping the horse and maybe practicing running and handing off the lance. But he was also doing his own kind of moves, swinging around and stuff. I swear to God, that is straight out of Avatar, the Airbender. Those moves, those kind of swirls, and his cloak, and that staff, the little ball kid, that's Aang doing Aang moves from Avatar. Anyone who's seen it will know exactly what I mean.
Aang and Egg, I love that.
Yeah. And final thought, more of a question, really. I'm extra intrigued because I did not realize that Robin didn't have shoes on there. What the heck is he doing? Why is he walking around in his field? Egg clearly trying to find somewhere that was out of the way of Dunk, who tried to find somewhere out of the way of the whole tournament. And here comes this renowned knight walking by with no shoes on, no horse,
it's the 7. They wanted him. They put him there so that him and Egg would cross paths.
Think about Sept and Maribald in the main novels. He walked barefoot everywhere, and Baelor walked barefoot to Dorne from King's Landing. So this is smaller scale compared to that. Yeah,
it's
you got people that go
trait,
and the Hornfoot tribes don't wear shoes, and they live beyond the wall. They're crazy.
Yeah, but I think the commonality would be to the religious figures. What
more
you
like
brought
Baelor,
them up. Yeah, you know what I mean, is that they are. It's just a trait of someone who is very fervent in their religion, right? That you eschew all comforts, and I think that's where he's coming from with it.
I think that's accurate. Yeah, I like that. I love this. He has my favorite single line of the episode. Second favorite. My favorite line is the whole on bone, as it were. But my second favorite line is when he says, "You're the maddest knight in the realm," and he goes, "If it is we are a vessel for the warrior. If it is madness bid, it's madness delivered." He's saying, I'm not mad. I'm a vessel for the warrior. And if the warrior tells me to be mad, then that's what I got to do. It's not my choice.
I have.
Yeah, so that's amazing. I love that. And this continues the character development of characters who are part of the 7 that are not necessarily all that developed in the novel. So it's a good choice for them to flesh them out any more. And I think the perfect 2 to work on is Robin Riesling and Sir Lionel, which is already underway. We talked about that. But for Robin's case, in the 7 trial, Egg just runs over and gets him, and he joins. It's simple as that. There's nothing more to it. So, I don't know. I wouldn't say that's unsatisfying, but it's not the most clever connection George R. Martin's ever written. So, having him develop more makes so much sense. And the first thing he says is, "We'll judge you fairly." He's talking about judgment. The whole thing is a trial by 7, the judgment of the 7. He thinks he's the warrior incarnate or the warrior, a vessel for the warrior. How could he not participate in the trial when he thinks he's a vessel for the warrior? It's like, oh, this is where I belong. And go ahead.
I love this for all the things you're saying, because this scene took maybe 1 minute, but it does so much to later on justify this guy joining Dunk 7, right? And it's very elegant storytelling, because it also gives us like a cool little action moment in the middle of what starts off as maybe what people might think of a slow pace. So, I don't know, from entertainment standpoint, but also it does one other bit of development, something that has been happening consistently, but I caught here, and this scene wasn't in the book. It made me, I've been wondering a little bit, maybe you guys can help me, how much this happened in the book. Egg almost never answers questions. He always answers with new questions. When he's like, did you steal that horse? You know, tell me the truth and I'll be fair. And he's like, well, it's not stealing if you mean to return it. He didn't say he stole it or not. You know, like when Dunk asked, are you an orphan? Egg's like, are you an orphan? Like, he rarely answers questions directly. He states another fact or asks a different question back or whatever. I'm trying to remember how much that happened in a book, but one way or the other, this scene is just another example of Egg doing that. This scene did a lot of work for how short it was. You know?
Yeah, I totally agree. And one last bit that could help bring him around is Egg can argue. We can still have Egg go run and get him. That could still be the person he recruits. Yeah. And he can say, hey, you were, not only is Sir Robin inclined probably already, but he can be like, hey, the 7 are the reason we met out in the woods. You know, like that was fate. That was destined for you to do that because he goes, I've never heard of Sir Duncan the Tall. And he goes, you will. You will. And he's like, see, you will. Like, look at that. It's happening just as the gods planned, right? It's also great for him too, because in the book, if it goes the same, which I assume it will, he gets paired up against Daron in the initial joust, the initial tilt for the trial by 7. So he gets by far the easiest pairing. Daron just falls off immediately and lays there in the mud.
Sounds like madness to me.
Yeah. Put the 2 mad guys against each other, right? Shout out to Hey Dom Tartaglia of Folkwise Podcast, who says the best part of this show is going to be every time there's a one-eyed man, I'm going to shout Bloodraven. I've got a Bloodraven shirt on, too. Shout out to our friend Patrick Doherty, who made this one. It says, Bloodraven shot first. Obviously, Star Wars reference. Let's talk about...
oh, yeah, sorry to cut you off. I just was going to point out shirts. I'm also wearing a shirt. It's an Avatar shirt. It's a tree that you might juxtapose with the oak tree that Dunk put in his helmet. Part of why I wore it, or not in his helmet, shield. But it is also from Avatar.
Elm.
Let's talk Westeros. Hello, Operator, Ashea's favorite of the Dunk and Egg moments. I love this one too. Dunk is annoyed when Egg returns from training. He's like, "Why you should tell me if you go off." But part of that is Dunk's nerves. He's very anxious about going into the tilt, which they're disconnected on because Egg already knows he's not tilting today, and Dunk, they haven't had that conversation yet. That comes just after the song, which is great. So they're not Ironborn, clearly. That crosses that off the list. You later find out he's Targaryen, but it's important to note that he's not Ironborn. Just kidding. Anyway, the song is hilarious. Ashea is going to read it for us because she loves it even more than I do, which is saying a lot because I was just so enamored with this. But more thoughts on it after we hear the whole thing.
All right. Prince Baelor was the firstborn. Prince Maekar sprang out last. Daemon was the bastard, so they kicked his bastard. Grass is green in summer, green grass I adore, but grass is red all over when you kill a rebel. Horses die in battle, this battle was the front. Blackfire's not a trueborn, he came from the wrong country was in peril. The anvil was a rock, the hammer smashed the bastard with his giant veiny host of Dornish spearmen. I love that end so much. We just trails off. Like, oh, no.
It's so very fitting. Of course, kids, there would be songs about the Blackfires and being villainous and losers and bastards and all that, and especially the Targaryen children who were very close to the family that they actually fought against. I mean, Maekar is the hammer, or the anvil rather, so that's his own father in the song, so of course he's going to be very attached to this idea. Now, let's jump to the Sworn Sword for a few takes on this, because it's pretty neat how this connects to some things that he says and maybe will say in season 2. He says, for example, the hammer and the anvil? The old man's mustache gave a twitch. The singers leave out much and more. Daemon was the warrior himself that day. Right? So he's telling his side of the story. Now, Sir Robin Risling might have thoughts on that last part. Now, who was the warrior then? I'm the warrior. No. The next one from Sir Eustace is, the singers can go on about their hammer and their anvil, sir, but it was the Kinslayer who turned the tide with a white arrow and a black spell. He rules us now as well. Make no mistake. So, yeah, like he's thinking of songs like this when he refers to these tales, the things that are one-sided. Like these are very very specific takes from one side. They're not down the middle. They're not neutral. Specifically as well, he mentions that Bloodraven made it illegal to sing similar songs about the Blackfire. So you can only sing the Targaryen ones. So he's pretty hardcore about that. You can't even sing their songs. There's also a specific memory Sir Eustace has of the host of Dornish Spearmen coming, like screaming, like the noise they made as they hit the battlefield was very memorable to him, and how they filled the air with their spears. So yeah, this is touching on some, as usual, it's lighthearted, but it's referring to some pretty serious things.
You know, if someone did sing one of those songs, I wonder if Bloodraven would have snapped their finger.
Yikes. Yeah, or worse, or snap their tongue or something. I don't know. So after the song is over, he's like, go get my armor. I'm ready for he's like, well, first of all, you don't have your shield. And he's like, well, yeah, we'll collect it on the way. Clearly hadn't thought about that. But then he tells him, you can't do that. It's only the highborn folks that can challenge people today. And he's like, then why have I been throwing up all morning? It's a mystery. And then of course that leads to them like, hey, we can have a full breakfast now that we're not. So that opens up the whole day for them to do dunk and egg things all day long, just hang out with each other, have all these great conversations, which perhaps the biggest reason why this episode was so good. So let's get into those specifics then. It's going to, of course, be tested by the reveal of who Egg actually is. There's been a couple of times where Dunk has gotten mad at him, and as you said, Sean, he starts to react maybe the way Sir Arlen would, but then he backs down and is like, okay, I shouldn't have reacted like that. This is a teaching moment. This is something I should, this isn't a time for me to yell at you and curse at you. I should explain what you did wrong, and, you learn from it. It won't be quite so easy this time with the reveal of his of his ancestry, but we're not avoiding spoilers, so we know that's basically going to work out. Watching the process though is amazing because these two actors are so good at it. So yeah, the breakfast sandwich thing, very relatable, a different kind of egg moment. How those goose eggs were huge, and boy, Dexter he had that I'm so hungry I can't wait to eat this look just down pat.
I thought it was so cute that they did have each of them break their own egg, which kind of like made me start thinking, how many times in his life has Egg cooked? Has he cooked for himself or cooked like a big breakfast like this, even if he had to eat some meals on his own to get to Dunk, right? I doubt he was cooking much. And so anyways, it was just kind of cute to think that Dunk was teaching him how to sew. He was teaching him how to cook. It was really heartwarming. And as an egg lover myself, I have to say these are some of the most beautiful eggs I've ever seen. And I want to know if anyone in the chat has ever eaten a goose egg or any other really huge egg like this.
Like an ostrich egg, maybe.
Can I say real quick, Ashaya, that to your point there, I do appreciate that we're seeing, this hedge knight, this true knight, whatever term you want to use for Dunk here, doing things that you wouldn't normally think of a knight doing, right? Like cooking his food and sewing in patches and stuff like that. Things that maybe even you think of something for a maiden to do. But it's again kind of challenging what is a real knight? What is a true knight? Even in my mind, I still think of knights as being like in shining armor with horses living in castles. And maybe that's the difference between a knight and a hedge knight. The hedge knight's out there sleeping under the stars in ragged clothes, that he's still ostensibly, honorable and brave and tough and everything. But he doesn't have a castle full of servants polishing up his sword and cleaning his boots and cooking his meals. He's got to do everything on his own. And Egg seeing this, I think, is good for him. And I don't know. I love this scene in a million ways. Mostly it's centered around their bonding, but it is also neat to see the reality of Dunk's life, of a hedge knight's life.
Yeah, there's a lot that gets omitted from details that just you can't necessarily talk about, or you get bogged down with it. But yeah, there's a lot of little things that go into the day-to-day life. We saw that a lot in the first episode with him cleaning his clothing and beating it on the rock and all this other stuff. It reminds me of a scene in a book I've mentioned a few times in the past on this show, is The Bright Sword, where there's a character, he's got all his knightly gear on, his armor, and he fights somebody, and this guy gets a hit in on his arm, and he's wearing armor, but a piece of a fastener breaks off and flies away into the grass. And he's like, oh, man, now my gauntlet's not going to stick on properly. And he's like, I'll never find that fastener, you know, and how it's going to be really hard to replace that. So like little things like that. This is an example of that kind of thing where you're getting down into the nitty gritty and seeing the lifestyle, but they're doing it so well like that. This is on top of that. It isn't just that they're doing it. They're doing such a great job of it.
One other quick little note I want to make. What does Egg have against lambs?
He rode in that cart. Remember, he rode in the cart on the way there.
Oh,
so he had to smell them and
with them again.
Yeah, it was a whole day's riding with them. Yeah. So that is actually a good transition, though, Sean. We're going to talk about the sitting on the hell scene together. You know, you are in a place like this. That scene. So
can I add something about the breakfast sandwich
you should,
sequence
yes.
real quick? Just about how it pertains to Tansel. Why Tansel not reply to him? What's up with that? He goes, do you like goose eggs? And she just totally ignores the question. I'm shocked by that. I don't know about her anymore if she can't even answer a simple egg question. All right.
Everyone turns on Tansel.
I had a similar thought, by the way. She was so dismissive of him, but when I watched it again, as she approached him, she was kind of smiling and maybe kind of nervous about making eye contact.
Well, exactly. She was smiling. So say something. Yeah. Yes. No. One word.
Yeah, I do think it was awkward, but I think it was awkward. I think that was just it.
I mean, it was funny. Yes, it's very funny. Exactly.
Very funny.
It is.
So sitting on the hill together, we have, this is perhaps the most sincere of the Dunk and Egg scenes where he talks about what he's going to do, like his life goal. He's like, after I win a great campaign for my lord, I'm going to get a plot of land and raise. So he has sort of humble goals there. I mean, considering who he's a royal, they're especially humble, but they're modest as well, for the most part. They're appropriate for like a young boy, like dreaming of his future. But it's just, again, it's just so cute the way he's like, oh no, it was like, I'm the second most beautiful daughter. And they're like, Egg. Dunk's face is like, he's confused. Genuinely, he was like, second most beautiful? Why would you say that? He's like, well, you've already married his most beautiful, right, sir? And he's like, and the look he gets on his face when he hears Egg say that is the most like, oh, this kid's the best. I love this kid so much moment. Like, the acting in that moment is so good. And that leads to he's like, and maybe even lambs. He's like, F your lambs, you know? He says that his delivery on that is so good. By the way, in the behind the scenes, Dexter says he really doesn't like cursing. He really does not like cursing, but it's his job.
Yeah, he does it because it's his job. That's why. Yep. I posted the clip on our History Westeros TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, this kid really was born to be Egg. He hatched. I don't think he was born. I think he hatched. So just running, y'all have takes on this particular scene?
I just wanted to point out that even though Dunk gets cut off when he's telling him, you know, that yes, he can stay with him if it all works out, you know, Egg, I think, could still tell it was a yes.
He was nodding.
Dunk is nodding. Yeah. Enough was said. Egg isn't a fool. It gets cut off, but before Dunk knew who Egg was, he said, stay with me. And I think that's significant to Egg, you know?
Absolutely. There's also the scene with the fortune teller, which we'll discuss separately. The discussion of Alice, three-fingered Alice, we'll discuss that separately. Speaking in each other's voices, teasing each other. We don't have a whole lot to say about that other than it's another great moment between them. Great acting, great fun. Which comes while they're watching the joust.
At him here.
Yeah, look at that smile.
He just loves him. So
you know, when I name my favorite scene, really maybe more of a moment when Egg's like, ooh, you know, when he's kind of flirting with Tansel. This was my runner-up moment here. I was like, oh, all I do is eat fancy food and grapes. And their little jabs at each other. I loved it.
That was really good.
It was funny how Dunk made his voice high to mock Egg, and Egg made his voice low to mock Dunk. It was really great. I don't know, writing, acting, directing, whatever it was. I loved it.
Yes, so good. Yeah, and of course, it's important to get a lot of these moments in before it gets a bit darker, which happens in this episode. It gets darker, so it's not like this is coming far in the future. No, it's coming just right away. Yeah, the watching the joust was really fun. But yeah, it gets interrupted, like Ashaya said, by Plumber coming up, which brings us a non-book scene, though it does relate to a scene in the Mystery Night, which this might be partial setup for. but also I'm not entirely sure where they're going with it. However, that said, if this was House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones, I would probably just be like, yeah, they got some idea. They're just doing something. It's not necessarily bad, but I don't know what they're doing here. But they've done such a good job and have seemed to be stubborn about sticking to the novel with this as much as possible that I figure it ties into something else. I figured this is expanding on something else or attached to something else rather than just something cut from whole cloth differently that they've added on.
I thought about it a little bit too. I thought it was really interesting. And, my superficial thought is, they're just setting up future seasons of, maybe even, aside from that, planting a seed in our audience's mind that there's stuff going on behind the scenes that maybe Dunk or the audience or Egg even is a little naive to. But I do hope, I'm a little worried that this does create a whole new plot line. It might disrupt what we're, expecting. So far, the things they've done different have been good, appropriate and good, and I have no real complaints. But this seems like a divergence that might be enough that I'm worried about. So I'm hoping it's just A, setting up future seasons, and B, a sort of a red herring. You know what I mean? They're really, it does a lot to disguise the egg reveal. Does that make sense? They really feel like we're on a certain track of what's going to happen next. If you haven't read the book, you're thinking, okay, Dunk's going to pick this Andrew guy, right? But we're never even going to get. He's never going to enter the list at all. So I'm hoping it's sort of a little bit of a red herring, but we'll see.
Maybe an orange herring for the Ashfords. Yeah. It's a milder version of what I just said about the darker side of things. It's the darker side of knighthood and tournaments. It's clearly dishonorable and dishonest, but ripping off a bookie is definitely not as bad as what Arian does, for example. Like there's over the line of dishonorable, but there's definitely proportion here, and this is pretty mild as far as things go, as far as things that are definitely dishonorable, but Dunk is still like immediately turned off by it, that's a good thing. Although he does consider it. He, even in the tent with Raymond, he's still thinking about doing it because he's desperate, and that's another tough situation he's in. He's like, well, do I really want to risk losing everything? Like I wouldn't have Egg or my horses. Like it's a lot. So it is very tempting.
And I mean, that's what Plummer's saying too, is like, hey, if all things were even, you could win. Like you could deserve it, right? But it's not even. You are at a disadvantage as compared to everyone else here, right? And so this will put you at a more even level with everyone else. This is basically just like, adding a handicap in here, for you, right?
Yeah.
That's another reason it's tempting. This is so, even are suspicious surrounding a scene. I still like it because I don't know where they might be going with it, but it's so interesting because they're not making it like Dunk just has to do what he's going to do anyway. You know what I mean? They're on some level, maybe Plummer is kind of steering him to make this particular challenge when he enters the lists, but Dunk plans on winning anyway. Like it's not like he's asking Dunk to throw the joust. He's asking Dunk just do the thing, just go win like you were going to anyway. And it's almost in a way honorable what Plummer's doing, letting him in on the scenario. He's like, hey, let me be honest with you about something here. There's and also, like you said, Dunk is considerate because there is a stick and a carrot here. There's like, you want to win and you'll get extra if you win, and you don't want to lose, you lose everything. We're just asking you to do what you're going to do anyway. Dunk feels like he won't have earned it if he knows the other guy's going to throw it. But anyway, it's so interesting. Dunk definitely has this instinct to do the right thing, but it also shows that he isn't some like, I don't know,
goody two shoes or whatever. He still has some sense of reality. Yeah,
exactly right. And it is. I also have this other concept in my mind that I think about. I think it's centered around the idea of like theft. That like the closer you are to starvation, I think morality might be on like a sort of a sliding scale. Like if you're filthy rich, what business do you have stealing? Why in the world would a billionaire steal money, right? But if you're starving, if your child
unheard
is starving,
of. Sorry.
Of course, yeah. Of course you're going to steal an apple or bread. And, maybe even whatever laws are around it, most people, if you were watching a movie and the hero was destitute and
would you steal my backup bread even?
So, and Dunk is on that level where he he's not exactly starving to death, but he's about to put him in position to, put himself in position to where he might be starving to death. Where his horse, who knows what might happen to his horse, and he's concerned about himself and the people he cares about. At this point, he's already starting to think about Dunk, or Egg rather. So, this prospect, and if he did, I can't hardly believe it, but if he did lie about being a knight in the first place, then he's on a slippery slope of following that up with another, what he would think of at least as, dishonorable thing. Anyways, it is interesting that he definitely has this instinct to do the right thing, which we see over and over again, even to his detriment.
Yep.
But he doesn't. But he does have temptation, right? It's almost like
that's kind of Dunk's story is a lot about temptation, right? Book after book, he deals with temptation in various forms.
And it's kind of like the idea of being brave, right? If you're not scared of something in the first place, it's not really brave to face it. So if these things aren't tempting, it's not as honorable or disciplined or whatever it is to not give in to the temptation.
True. So it's not a challenge. It's not something he's overcome if it's not, if it's not a challenge. Yeah.
Can I say something about this shot here beforehand? When Dunk says, "Oh, I don't have any money," and Plumber's just like, "Oh, you sweet summer child."
He's like, as shocking as that may be.
Really good acting from that guy. I loved that beat. And then I really liked the editing beat, again, for comedy, a flashback. When Dunk thinks back to Ashford,
Sir Andro,
Sir Andro, and it's just like one brief flash, and then it just has Dunk's face as he thinks about. He's a deft Lance, and
he's being political here, though.
Right, and it's so funny. It's very effective.
He's being a little bit political here because he knows this is a man who works for Lord Ashford. And the implication, though, with that joust, we see that scene twice. We see a longer version of Andro knocking someone down, but it's a very dishonorable moment. Look at Andro is charging this guy who's barely ready. The guy is not even started charging yet. He doesn't have his lance in hand. And Andro just levels him, and this appears to be Sir Samwell Stokeworth, by the way. That's pretty sure who that is. Looks like there's a lamb inside a cup there, which is the Stokeworths have a chalice and a lamb as part of their...
Yeah, the Stokeworth sigil is a white lamb on a green background holding a gold chalice. And this seems to be a gold chalice with a white lamb on a green background. So it does seem to be Stokeworth. Maybe just a slight, era different variant. Maybe this Stokeworth is in fact, has his own personal sigil, right? How we see that personal sigils exist. Even Aryan Brightflame himself has his own personal variant. So that's what I think this was what we're seeing here.
Absolutely. And then he has it on his helmet too, which is really neat. I don't know if you have that shot too, but his helmet is also the shape of this lamb in a cup. It's pretty cool. And it's a good example of, we really need to see all these armors, back the behind the scenes to see all these designs and everything. We got at some point they'll all come out and we'll talk about that. But there's more.
Say real quick.
Yeah, I wasn't going to move on. Go ahead.
Just that flashback there when I wondered about that moment too. Probably still at least like most things, dishonorable isn't black or white. It's not just dishonorable or not dishonorable. There's a range in between, right? I think, per the rules of the tournament, I think that's even maybe part of what they're trying to show us here. It's partly that guy's not ready, but it's partly that guy and or his squire's fault that he's not ready.
Yeah, I think that was the second tilt, right?
Turned around, and Andrew was just quicker and better prepared to get back down faster. And that other guy's still trying to turn and get his lance. And hey, you're not ready. I'm going to get you. You should have been ready. It is possible that the more honorable thing would have been to hold on a minute, or maybe to not, I don't know, he could have hit him in the head or killed his horse. There's certainly more dishonorable things he could have done, but I feel like he's within the rules of the tournament.
Rules. He's definitely within the rules. Yeah. I agree he's within the rules, but the point is that they're showing a dishonorable moment right before proposing that this guy's going to be part of cheating. So it's already it's like a 1 second character building for Sir Andrew, which is they're very, as we've said and shown, it's been very efficient how they've done that throughout. So and there's also my favorite line of the scene perhaps is "Mind your pride, Sir Duncan." That's the very efficient, succinct decision that it comes down to. It's like, is your pride is it pride or honor? Which is it? Or is it make sure you're separating them. And as gross as his mouth sounds are, they did something pretty funny with the scene when he says, "Sir Duncan, a moment." He hawks, and then they cut to them in the forest, and then he spits. It's like the split,
the
a
good
split up.
editing segue.
Yeah, which continues the pattern of them doing very silly, subtle things with him, like how he was dunking his bread in his cup right when Dunk said his name was Dunk. So anyway, let's talk about the joust. I appreciated how they kept showing Baelor to get his reactions. Like, his acting was very effective with just his looks on his face, and they gave him a little fidget. He was fidgeting with his ring a lot, which I thought was a very human touch to add.
Very Alicent. That's fine. Next, we're gonna see him biting his nails.
That's right. And look at Lord Ashford. He's even looking at him.
I made that joke because of House of the Dragon, the show, but actually in the books, Rhaenyra has that trait. Right, like they specifically mention that Rhaenyra does that with her rings.
You can see it in the picture here. Ashford is looking at him do that with his hands. He's like watching him fidget. So it's like they're drawing extra attention to it.
Baelor is just like wincing and cringing the whole time he sees Aerion. He's like, ugh, this guy, he's a stain on my house.
I hate this guy, yeah.
Right? He's like, ugh, I hate him.
So, Baelor's reacted to Aerion much like we reacted to Joffrey watching Game of Thrones. Like, oh, what's he going to do now? What's it going to be this time?
So we have a shot that we've been seeing since the early trailers, and this is the book version of this scene. You can see how well it copies the show copies it nicely. Quote:
"A few feet away, the young prince sat at ease in a raised camp chair before his great black tent. His helm was off. He had dark hair like his father, but a bright streak ran through it. A serving man brought him a silver goblet, and he took a sip. Water, if he is wise, Dunk thought. Wine, if not." And I also want to share that there's this shot of him of this same moment from Gary Gianni's A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is just spot on.
Yeah.
I think you'll agree with the depiction here.
That is awesome. Yeah. Good job, Gary Gianni. Gary Gianni doesn't miss. So here's something interesting about this moment. I wrote in our notes that he seems to maybe have that goblet, but not the silver streak in his hair. But Ashaya corrected me. He does have the silver streak. You just can't see it from here.
I'll pull up. Here, I'm pulling up the picture. You can see it better right here. And
oh, yeah, there
right
it is.
There.
Good job.
They just weirdly haven't shown us that part of his head really in focus, but he does have a silver streak.
Very cool.
Sure. Confirmed.
So there's a little bit of a longer introduction here where he makes eye contact with Baelor, and Baelor kind of holds it for a minute before giving his nod. That's a slightly different moment from the book. In the book, Aerion just gives him, it's described as a nod that's so brief and subtle that it's hardly there, you know. Yeah, perfunctory. Yes,
is the word they used. I remember. Yeah,
you're right. Yeah, so this is a slight difference, but it gets the same point across. I think it adds a little. It gives Baelor a chance to have some emotion in the moment too. Then Aerion looks really cool, but he is so extra. It's so fitting with how he's described. Later, Raymond calls him vain, and he is very extra. As cool as it looks, it's so extra. He's got all this bling and imagery and heraldry, and the way they described it is they tried a bunch of different dragon imagery for the face, and they realized that the most scary thing was just his human face attached to all that, like a man dragon. And they actually scanned Finn Bennett's face to make it sort of match. So like a 3D printing or whatever. Even his lance is gold tipped, apparently, like that, which is the same as they describe it in the novel. It's stripes of red, orange, and yellow. So they got that detail in there as well. Great job. Even his lances are extra.
He's also cosplaying Shadow the Hedgehog here, as you'll see. Yep.
So Finn Bennett is 26. Peter Claffey is 30. Egg is Dexter Soul Ansel is actually 9, so that makes the age difference bigger than it should be because we see those actors and we don't think teenagers. But the show characters, they are supposed to be teenagers. Arian is 18 at most, 16 at the least, and Dunk is like 17. So they're basically the same age, Dunk and Arian, but they don't look it because they're in real life they're adults, well above teenagers. They do make a point of showing Makar's chair being empty, and then they have Dunk point that out. So they really want to draw your attention to that. And this is, as I pointed out earlier, because Makar is out looking for Daron and Egg, Arian has the opportunity to do this. He would not behave like this if his father was watching. That's made very clear. The subtext is that Makar has Tywin levels of denial about what his children are, and will accept excuses. Arian could be like, oh yeah, it was just an accident, my lance went low. Everybody else knows he did it on purpose, but Makar will probably accept the excuse that it was an accident. That's probably what his plan was. He knows that his father has high levels of denial and plays to that, which is why he acts a certain way in front of his father and doesn't when he's not there. It's pretty straightforward, I think. So they give a slight change from the novel and they add an extra pass. In the book, it's just one tilt and it's over. But because there's less jousting in this overall episode and they wanted to focus on these characters a little more, and because, damn, if you're going to put all that armor on for Arian, you may as well get a little more out of it, So they have him like veer out of the way and Humphrey almost like pitches over, like trying to reach over and almost loses his lance basically. And then, of course, the actual disgusting moment, which we predicted would be very brutal. Easy prediction. They're not going to shy away from showing that on a TV show like this. Very interesting behind the scenes on how they filmed it and did the lance through the neck and all that stuff. The horse looked pretty savage there. I like to say that one more point about his armor. It's like the opposite of Steely Pates, like the one guy is like as much functional and no ornamentation. I mean, this is very functional armor, I'm sure, but it's very ornamental. The same music that played here was the lighthearted sort of music they played at the end with the reveal, which I thought was an interesting choice. So they made the riot a little less like severe by having music that was a little more lighthearted go with it. Even as Baelor is cringing and going, oh God, I knew this was going to happen, or something like this was going to happen.
Yeah, this was actually one of my favorite sequences in the episode too, in terms of how they edited it and cut it and put music to it. I thought it was just so effective to show this like dark and comedic brutality, and showing the agitation of the crowd and like, I don't know, just how everything for the Targaryens is kind of just hitting the fan. You know what I mean? Like this, it's showing that they're losing control, and it's like a circus, I guess,
yes.
is kind of like what you see here. And I feel like that music really intensified that.
And Arian is very sensitive to that, according to some behind-the-scenes comments, and it makes sense that he's insecure about not just himself, but about House Targaryen's position compared to how they have been. They're just so much weaker than they had been in the past, that they're not viewed as taken as seriously, etc. So he's very keenly aware of that.
And making it worse.
Yeah, he's making it worse. Yeah, this is not the way to help Arian.
That was a neat little insight I got from, I think it was from behind the episode, and I think it was the director talking about it, that, in a sort of big picture sense, I mean, I'm going to go into more detail than they did even there, but the Targaryens have lost an amount of power. At this point, they don't have the dragons anymore. And, the whole coin flip thing about, you kind of go back and forth with what you get out of Targaryens. But, in recent times, there have been some troubling Targaryen leaders and wars, and they don't have dragons. And so they really need to be leading through deed, through, good decisions and charisma and leadership and so on, right? And that's probably largely why they're at this tournament, right? They want to mingle with the regular people and buddy up to the different nobles and show off their sons who are going to be kings one day, and on, right? This is sort of a PR moment for them. And Arian ruins it. He makes it the exact opposite of what Baelor was trying to accomplish here. It's so awful on so many levels.
And yeah, because he thinks that the way to accomplish Targaryen supremacy or to restore it is through fear, which is very misguided, but it's more of Maekar's parenting behind it all, I think, as a man who is very harsh about things and authoritative, and this is sort of an extension of that. Obviously, Maekar isn't fully responsible for how Aerion came out. After all, Aemon and Egg are his sons also, and they're not like that at all. So yeah, it's just, you know, the nature versus nurture. There's a lot of nature in there as well as the nurture. How about these Star Wars looking Kingsguard? They look like the Imperial Guard from the Emperor's Imperial Guard, but white instead of red. How do they keep so clean, man? They look kind of sinister, don't they?
Yeah, I know they have these spikes on their heads, and they're all white, and yeah, I think they're very sinister, and especially paired with the music and just beating back the crowd who are not on horses, and it's pretty effective.
Yeah, and just the way they stand out amongst that crowd too. It's like, whoa, that is just so white amongst all that grime and gray and green and browns, and
they do look like they rode in off Hoth.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
Troopers and Snow Guard.
Here is the book version of the aftermath of that scene, and as you'll see, it's again really similar to what we just saw. Quote:
Dunk felt sick himself. What would I do if such a fate befell Thunder? A man-at-arms with a pole-axe dispatched Sir Humphrey's stallion, ending the hideous screams. Dunk turned and forced his way through the press. When he came to open ground, he lifted Egg off his shoulders. The boy's hood had fallen back, and his eyes were red.
A terrible sight, aye,
he told the lad.
But a squire must needs be strong. You'll see worse mishaps at other tourneys, I fear.
It was no mishap, Egg said, mouth trembling.
It's one of the only times he doesn't call him sir, and I think that's a sign of, because in this moment, Egg knows best. Egg knows what's going on better than Dunk, and there's no doubt about it, because that's his brother. He is like, you're not going to tell me what my brother intended. I know what my brother intended. So I think that's telling that the honorific that he's always very careful to include is not there this time. Also because he's just angry and disgusted. All right, folks, roughly our halfway point. A lot to say about this episode. We're having a lot of fun with it. There's so many great scenes to dig into. We've got more coming in a minute. We would love to have you all join us over on Patreon. We are putting out lots of content every week here, and we rely on you all to keep that going. We have fun things like titles and bonus episodes, our scripts, things like that, getting to vote in vote on future episodes and things like that. So you can sign up through patreon.com/historyofwesteros or go to our website where you can find other ways to support the show. historyofwesteros.com includes some shopping links, places like Amazon, where you can shop and get credit, and we get credit without you spending any money anymore additionally. And just a variety of ways to help the show. If you go to historyofwesteros.com, we certainly appreciate it and rely on it. Did I miss? No, I didn't. Okay. Thought I missed something earlier. Anyway, let's continue. We have Alice with Three Fingers, featuring my favorite single line and my favorite single scene of the episode. With the end of the jousting, they have more leisure time. After seeing such a horrible sight, why not head over to Sir Lionel's for some lighthearted entertainment, maybe a drink? There's always something going on there, right? They're partying during the daytime, aren't they?
Yeah, lets them get out of the rain, too.
Yeah, good point. It is raining a little bit. That's a good point. So here are the lyrics to Alice with Three Fingers. Ashay, I read the other one. I will read this one. Oh, Alice was a special lass, born bereft a thumb, lost a digit tending flock, now feeling awfully glum. Oh, Alice with three fingers, a copper in her glass, had 2 fingers less than most, she'll shove them up your ass. Hey, I once gave her a silver, feeling down alone. I tried to buy a pinky, but I got the whole arm bone. Oh, Alice with 3 fingers, never had a lot. She gave me all she had to give, to more than what was sought. Oh, to more than what I bought. Oh. Yeah. So, of course, the song is pretty funny, but it's mostly just a setup for this brilliant conversation. And as I said at the beginning, I find it brilliant because it's funny, but it's really the essence of who Egg is. His career as a king is small folk focused. It's in fact a big part of the reason why people didn't want him to be king because he was so, considered, quote, half a peasant by many nobles. And so, he says, do you suppose there was an Alice? And this is another thing I love. This is, again, he couldn't have this conversation with his family. They wouldn't care. They'd be like, I don't care about was there an Alice or not. And Dunk isn't like denigrating the question. He's not just humoring him. He's in the moment with him. He's trying to, even though he doesn't really have much insight, he still wants to help Egg work through it. He's like, well, this is something interesting to Egg. I'm thus interested too. I'm going to be a father or a brother and, not mock him for his interests. And it has he's really gets at, well, is it a story of honor? This is a woman that didn't have a lot of natural gifts, but made the most of it. And he considers that very noble, something that his family wouldn't, I don't think. So, and he refers to Hope. He says, her name is Hope, sir. And she belongs to all who invoke it. And, these are things that you don't normally get from royalty. And it's part of what makes Egg special, and how Dunk is very supportive of this aspect of him in general.
Yeah, I totally agree, Aziz. I don't think I could put it any better. I think it really does show that Egg is grappling with a lot of philosophical questions, that he's learning to see commoners as just people, just like the nobles, of course. And I think he's grappling with his own abilities, like what he talks about a dogged spirit and how you just have to work hard and give it your all, the whole arm bone, as it were. That was my favorite line of the episode, too. I just think it was hilarious, but also really speaks to giving it your all, giving 110%, and all that. And so, yeah, I thought it was a funny scene, but also a scene that'll speak so much to who Egg is and who Egg is going to become.
Can I add one other thought? I love the scene too. All the things you guys said, things I hadn't thought of, and things that you said better than I would have. But even more, I want to add, it was set up so well because Egg asked that, I don't know, innocuous question. Like, do you think her name is really Alice? And Dunk's like, oh, I don't know. That's something wiser people than me can figure out. And to Dunk, that's the end of the conversation. Think earlier when he told Egg, well, yeah, people call me dumb. And Egg was ready for elaboration, and Dunk was just done. But Egg's like, no, I got some elaboration. And, what you thought would just be like, oh, well, I don't know. Isn't that a funny thing? But Egg is like, no, I have some extended, serious thoughts about this. It was, I loved it in a million ways.
Also, how many times do you think they've heard that song that afternoon so far? Like, if we heard it twice, we heard him sing it and then sing it, run it back. Maybe Egg had heard it like 5 times, and he's like, I really have been thinking about this for a minute.
If there's one universal truth about people who are drunk, it's that they're repetitive. So, yeah. Let's talk about fathers. It's been a theme throughout our discussion, and it's certainly a theme throughout the episode. Right after this scene is when they have a brief discussion about that. Dunk asks him, while they're chewing on sausages, by the way, another like tasty-looking food that they're walking around with, having a munch. He says, did you know your father? And there's a pause, and Egg has to think for a second. He says, no, not really. So he's using no in the non-literal sense. He obviously knows his father, but like, he doesn't have much of a relationship with him. His father's been around. He's got 6 children. He lost his wife. He's a war hero. He's not very warm or sensitive. They don't maybe even have a lot in common, So he doesn't know. He's like, yeah, I know him, but I don't know him. I think that's what I took from that. He answered the question this time, Sean. Like, this is one of the times we did answer the question, but it still wasn't a direct answer.
Yeah. And I think it's, we'll put a pin in it for what I know we're going to end up talking about more, but the idea of what it means to know someone. So, yeah.
Good point. Yeah. So it's no accident that this line came in this episode instead of one of the first 2. They're setting up. We're getting really close to this point, revealing who his father is. Meanwhile, Dunk's side of things, he believes his own father was a thief because that's what people told him. And he talks about Bowler Brown and that sort of lighthearted line. He's like, well, if my father was as big as me, he wouldn't have been a very good thief. It's like, that's pretty good. So it's crazy how present Maekar is without being present at all. He looms over all of this when you really think about it. Again, his absence allows Aerion to be villainous, and he's absent because of Daeron and Egg being missing or absent themselves. It's weird to say a prince is making the most of it because princes have so much, right? They're as privileged as it gets. But wealth and power and royal ancestry is a recurring theme throughout George's writings, that none of those things mean you'll have good parents, right? In fact, it might work against you in a lot of cases because of all that wealth and power and pride distracts them from being parents, to put it mildly. Distracting is probably a kind way to put it, but the bottom line is the same: unparented children or poorly parented children. Certainly a lot of what's going on with Aerion and Daeron as well. If Aerion and Daeron feel more of the pressure, whereas Egg feels more left out, I think.
Can I say something that you talking just now, you sparked a thought in me that I hadn't even considered before, but I don't know. Consider this. Dunk, in his mind, he's almost suspicious of either his dad couldn't have been as big as him, or couldn't have been a thief, or couldn't have been a good one. And Dunk also has this idea that all these big, strong men who are knights in armor with shields and horses, they're honorable. They couldn't be. No way Aerion killed that horse on purpose. Even Robin Riesling, default assumed Egg had stolen that horse. There's like this parallel. There's this, what's the word I'm looking for? Congruency. I can't think of the word, but big people are honorable and not thieves. Small people, thieves. You know, like you can't be a good, honorable person if you're not a big, strong man. And you're probably a swarmy thief if you're a little scrawny punk kid. You know what I mean? I'm not sure that's a point that Martin or this show is trying to make, but it is something that's seeping through one way or the other, you know? Absolutely.
One last point about Maekar, well, maybe not one last point, but one other point about Maekar is that Daeron isn't just missing, he's missing because of the pressure from his father. So it's like Maekar is chasing after Daeron, not really coming to terms with the fact that he's the reason Daeron keeps running off. Like they say, Daeron's done this before. Or Baelor says Daeron's done this before. He's maybe that was Baelor trying to like get that point across without throwing it in his face. Is like, he keeps doing this. You keep pushing him, and he keeps doing this. Maybe you should pick up on this pattern, brother. You know. But nope. Maekar is blind, like we said. He's in denial. He's blind, and he has expectations that he will not set aside.
Even Raymond Fossaway has picked up on that pattern, right?
Yeah. He's like, that's why he's pissed in his goose pie or whatever he said, his swan pie. That's what it was. So it's all very connected to this. It's really neat. So we've compared Maekar to Stannis quite a bit, and it's a good point. He is like Stannis, but in this light, he's more of a Tywin. Because Stannis, while he's not exactly a good father to Shireen, in fact, he will probably prove to be as bad a father as possible if he burns her, which we do expect. But we just don't know what kind of father he is in general, other than an absentee future immolator. He's cold and proud like Maekar. But we all know boys and girls are treated way differently in this setting. Their upbringings are extremely different, the path they get put on. And Maekar has 4 sons, and Stannis has 0. So that you can't really compare. I wouldn't say that Maekar is nearly as bad a person as Tywin outside of parenting either, but they're both overbearing. They expect too much. They are very concerned with image. They're very willing to be violent, as Tywin would put it. He requires a sharp lesson. That's very similar to Maekar saying, I'll see him change or I'll see him dead, right? Like these are very stubborn men who are used to getting what they want. But with human beings, you can't have what you want. People can't be what they're not, but he's not giving up on that. Just like Tywin wouldn't.
I feel like it's a little bit different than how the books presented it. I don't think he said that I'll see him dead line in the books, for example.
No, he did. He did.
Did he? I don't quite remember that. But I still do feel like in the books, and again, I have a certain bias, I guess. I don't know. I tend to like Stannis. My default is, and I'm not saying he's faultless, but I tend to like him. And I tended to like Maekar also in the books in a way. But so far in the show, not so much. I felt like in the books, it was a little bit more, he was exasperated and wasn't sure what he was supposed to do. And in the show, it seems more like he doesn't care about figuring out what to do. These punk kids all beat him into place. You know what I mean? I don't know. It seemed in the book like he was, and maybe I'm giving more credit for the entirety of the book, but it seemed like he was more wanting to be a good father and hadn't figured it out yet. Here it seems like, I'm a good father. How come my boys aren't good?
I could see that sort of. Yeah, maybe. I think the book relies on a little more subtlety for that. I think they have Maekar acting more gruff and cursing a lot to draw that out more, maybe. It might have been the point. Now, one other difference between them that's not similar, Tywin that's separated from Maekar or Stannis because he was a firstborn son. He has the inborn confidence of the firstborn, which neither Maekar or Stannis have. They both have that chip on their shoulder, which in Maekar's case, he pushes that chip is also extended to his children. He pushes that on them as well. He's like, you should have chips on your shoulder too. Meanwhile, Tywin's youngest brother was Jaerion. Now, Jaerion, the description of Jaerion is that he's like, everyone else was playing the game. Tywin was the power authority. Kevin just got in line with him. Tyget tried to be like Tywin, just wasn't good enough. And Jaerion's like, I'm not playing this game. I'm doing my own thing. That's Egg to me. He's like, I'm not doing any of this. You guys, I hate what you're doing. I'm doing my own thing. Now, his doing his own thing is very different than Jaerion's doing his own thing, but it's still his own thing. Like, Jaerion wanted to sail off to Valyria. Egg isn't doing something like that, but it's still very different.
Give him a few years.
Yeah, maybe. The fortune teller. This is a small yet huge moment, like Egg himself. Plummer's in this scene, so it's almost like maybe there's like a little bit of subtext of choosing your destiny here. He's like, I'm not choosing that. What is my future? But he doesn't take it very seriously. Egg does. Like, Dunk laughs harder in this scene than he does in any other. And except for maybe when he's with Raymond a little bit later. But he hardly reacts to what she says. She's like, she's like, you want your fortune? And he's like, oh yeah, go ahead. He says it in almost like a flat voice. He's like, oh sure, let's do it. She says, you shall know success and be richer than a Lannister. And he just says, thank you, nonchalantly, like, all right, move on. Like, okay, cool. So let's discuss that real quickly before moving on to what she says about Egg. Shay, I thought you had a pretty good take on this.
Okay, I think it's basically referring to how eventually Rohan Weber marries Gerald Lannister, and she leaves him. And it's long been a theory that Dunk and Egg, or Dunk more specifically, but that their plot lines would intersect with that in her leaving. And so when he says, you shall know success and be richer than a Lannister, I think they mean you're going to cuck a Lannister, basically. Like, Rohan's going to leave her husband and you will know success with her. That's what I think it's saying, basically, to me.
I like that interpretation a lot. I have no notes on that. It's not meant to be. It's clearly not meant to be literally wealthier, having more money than a Lannister. That ain't happening. So we have to look for other interpretations.
I also want to say in the chat, I see another great interpretation here that I like from Jenny of Coldstone Creamery. Richer than Jaime Lannister in the pages of the Kingsguard book. He does have more pages.
Richer than a specific Lannister.
Yeah, than a specific one. Than a Lannister.
Way more pages.
Way more pages. So I like that a whole lot. I think both are great. Love that, Jenny. And love the name.
Can I say I like those both a lot, but I don't quite buy either one. I'm going to hold off to tell you what I think after we get past the egg part.
Okay, so now here's the egg part. She goes, hey, you do him now. And Egg is flabbergasted. He takes it very seriously. Here's the exact wording. You shall be king. You will die in a hot fire and worms will feed upon your ashes. And all who know you shall rejoice in your dying. And he goes, what? And Dunk just starts laughing. He just breaks out laughing. Like, that's funny. Yeah, good one. Like, he takes it as pure comedy. It
would be really comedic if you heard that your orphan boy Squire was gonna be like. That sounds so crazy.
Yeah, it does sound crazy, right?
So crazy if you're Dunk.
Doesn't sound crazy to Egg though.
No, it sounds very possible.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so preposterous that he would be king, but also it's preposterous to Dunk that everyone rejoices dying. This smart, little, hardworking kid who would rejoice is dying. I think both parts are hilarious to Dunk.
So a little bit of, I want to hear what else you have to say about this, Sean, but I want to add something that I think a lot of people didn't notice. I don't know that it's relevant. In fact, I lean towards not, but it's an interesting thing to take note of. This is the same actress that was the innkeeper in the first episode. I just recognized the bottom half of her face and then looked it up, and yeah, it's her. So it's the same. It's probably just the same actress. It probably isn't the same person in the show, but it could be. My semi-crackpot, if not complete crackpot theory is that, remember in the book, she says, all that guy does is talk about his drink and talk about his dreams. So if she's heard him talk about his dreams a lot, she could recycle them and go back and just like tell prophecies to people and like, hey, I've got the wording and everything. Like, this is going to sound authentic because it came from this guy or whatever. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why that doesn't work, but it's just a fun thought. So go ahead and tell me what you think about this interpretation, Sean, then I'll give mine.
So one thing I'll say in the second part to analyze the meaning of "and all who know you shall rejoice in your dying," that part doesn't make sense to me. And just like being richer than a Lannister, I was stretching to find ways that might have some meaning. And I thought of like the Jaime Lannister thing, like rich might not be in wealth, and the way she said a Lannister. So did that mean just a generic Lannister or a certain Lannister, or maybe there's some poor cousin Lannister in a cadet branch that isn't there's ways you could stretch for that to be quote unquote true somehow. And I think, but the thing, like, all shall rejoice in your dying, it's hard to stretch that to be true. There's this idea that egg is.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is,
well,
Sean.
The all is the part.
I think all. I think it's
you think
possible.
Aemon, you think his brother Aemon up at the wall rejoiced Egg's death.
Sometimes things can be
because he would be part of
rejoice
all.
is an extreme word, but I do think there could be a sense of relief that his brother, who had gone rather mad, maybe Aemon is the exception, but also like that's getting caught up on all. Not every person even has an opinion in this. Many people are neutral, right?
I mean, that's the whole point I'm making here, is that there are ways, maybe, like, especially if you think about maybe Egg went mad and all the stuff he's trying to do for the common people made the nobles mad. And even I mentioned earlier when talking about did he know his dad, we could talk about what you mean by no, because all the common people wouldn't rejoice after everything he did for them, I guess, unless he also went mad and killed a bunch of them randomly, like Ares did.
But do the common people really know him that well? I don't know.
Exactly. Do they really know him? So once again, I'm doing mental gymnastics to try to make sense of that, just like I was doing mental gymnastics to try to make sense of Dunk being richer than Lannister. And I think there are ways you can maybe do it, but you really have to stretch and make some assumptions, especially when you account for Aemon. But I think the more likely thing that answers both of these things that you're stretching to find a way is it's just a false prophecy. It's just like all prophecies have some misleading, inaccurate.
But it's not, Sean. It can't be. It can't
real.
be.
It's very.
He is going to be king and die in a hot fire. Right. So that she's definitely right. That's definitely prophetic.
That I'm not saying the whole thing is completely wrong.
Okay.
Just like I don't think she is correct when she says all will rejoice. I think there's some truth to this prophecy and some falsehood. I think she said one true thing and one false thing about Dunk, and one true thing and one false thing about Egg. And just like all prophecies, you go spinning off, trying to understand and figure it out. But in the end, you can't figure it out the right way. And I think in this case, the reason you can't figure it out in the right way is because it's just not quite right. It's just not quite a correct prophecy.
I think it implies.
Right,
I think it implies something really dark for us all, which is that Egg had gone full tilt into this, and everyone around him was disillusioned by him, was concerned for him, felt some measure of relief that he was dead. I think that's what it implies to me, and that's really sad.
If he had gone insane, you could see that. Now, I would like to push back a little. That was my first reaction too. My first reaction was, oh, this implies that he goes mad. But it doesn't have to, and one reason I think so is meta, and that is, well, we've already had that ending.
Well, I think it implies that he has a dogged spirit that everyone is sick to death of because it kills them.
Exactly. Like, it's not insanity.
It's not insanity.
It could be taken that way.
Yeah.
It's not insanity.
That's why, but it's not insane, but it still is something that everyone around him is going to feel a sense of relief that he is no longer putting them all through his, like, doggedly focused prophetic mind.
Yeah, and maybe this is part of, like, they're meant to show us that he starts to pay attention to prophecy more, because when he was 9 years old, someone gave him this prophecy and it stuck in his mind, and the idea that she could say such a thing to him not knowing who he is really spooked him.
It could be the type of thing, too, that as he gets closer to being king, if he reflects back on his prophecy, like in this moment, maybe he can just blow it off. But as he gets closer to being king, and it does become king, then he's going to start to think, why would everyone rejoice in my dying? And that might drive him to do something great, like hatch a dragon egg. How could they rejoice in my dying? And if I brought the dragons back, and he causes the rejoice in his dying by trying to bring
self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing. Right. Yeah, by trying to avoid it is is how you cause it. So I think that's a very good interpretation and very strong possibility. Now, one more note on this: George R. R. Martin almost certainly told them this. Like, he almost certainly had to sign off on that line. Because George has been very protective of the details around Summerhall. He tried to do a lot of clever things with the World of Ice and Fire, like have ink spilled on the notes within the book. Ultimately, that didn't work as from a publication standpoint. So it was just like missing parts from the text instead. So George has kept this very close to the chest for a very long time. And thus, I really doubt he would be okay with them just throwing some stuff out that doesn't fit his plans. So that's another thing, Sean. You would say it has to fit somehow. Yes, maybe it can be partially off. That's a fine interpretation. But I would approach this as if there's a way to interpret it that makes it completely correct. It doesn't have to be, but that's my initial way to take it because of the meta that it had to come from George. Now, George could say, yeah, let's throw him off a little bit. Let's not have it be so straightforward. But ultimately, that still leads to this being... There is an interpretation of this that fits. That's how I'm going to see it, but it doesn't have to be true.
Yeah, I agree with you, Aziz, and I would say just like if you're going to get stuck on words like, be richer than a Lannister or all who know you, that's where it isn't necessarily exhaustively true. He's not richer than a Lannister in every possible metric, and not every single person who knows of Aegon Targaryen. I think that's where you're getting stuck in your craw, is that you're saying it has to be so exhaustive. And I don't think it has to be. It just has to be true on some level, in some sense.
Well, I kind of agree with you. That's kind of my point. It's true on some level. He'll be king, and worms will feed on his ashes. But I just don't think everyone's going to rejoice in his dying.
Maybe more than half
I think people will. Yeah, people will. I don't think it will be all.
The people who know him will rejoice in his dying.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on. Let's not get stuck on that. Now, this next scene really connects to it, though, which is that we have Raymond and Dunk. Now, it starts with some comedy, as it often does. I've seen you with that boy before. And he's like, this boy is my Squire. The difference between the novel and the show here is pretty straightforward. Egg looks at his shoes and puts his hood up because he's afraid of Raymond recognizing him. Here, he just kind of looks off to the side and is really quick to make his exit. He's like, yeah, go have a drink with him. I'm going to go look at the puppet show. It's a very rational thing to say. And then he adds to it by saying, I'll pick up your shield, right? This is a good plan. And Dunk's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a good beat for Dunk, too, because you really see in his face that he's so torn between, the girl and networking, which is really what this is. Not only is it Fossaway apple cider, which they're known for, but this is just a good opportunity. He needs to get intel. Tansel doesn't really help him to get any further with his goals to do well in this tournament, and Raymond does.
I agree, and Raymond is so earnest about it, so sincere. He's like, we make it ourselves. It's like, ooh, cider made by the house that is known for apples? That's probably really good, man. They've been around thousands of years. They really probably nailed that recipe down. So this is one.
Also, if I can say real quick,
yeah.
Raymond also, extended a helpful hand to him in the past. Kind of rude to not take him up on it when he's continuing. And last time, he got a great supper with Lionel Baratheon. It might happen. It's a good track record. So and the track record with Tansel is uneasy. Like just earlier today, she barely acknowledged me when I said, "Hey, do you like goose eggs?" So you could see he definitely, like you said, Shay, he's torn. He's like, I wanted to get my shield from her.
Yeah, that is his thought. He's like, oh man, that was my excuse to hang out and see her, is to get that shield. But yeah, he's made the right decision.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's why he was balking there. He's like, wait, no, I want to go to But he's like, well, maybe I'll have a drink and then I'll be more brave about approaching her. So they go inside, they have their drink together, and it's so funny just how many apples are just sitting around in this room. There's just like stacks of apples everywhere. I'm just very amused by that. So they bring up, Dunk casually brings up Sir Andrew, like, he's still thinking about having to take that deal from Plumber. He hates it, but he's thinking about it. And Raymond brings up something he hadn't considered. He's like, oh, you want to play the villain, huh? That's a local hero, a local favorite. And Dunk hadn't thought about that. And then the conversation turns to what Arion did. He's like, I can't believe a prince would do that. And he's like, what's so hard about believing that? He's like, they're incestuous aliens, Duncan.
That was my second favorite line in the episode. After the whole arm bone, my second favorite was they're incestuous aliens, because, like, technically correct.
Yeah, tyrants and blood magickers who burned our lands and dragged us into their wars with no concern for our history or our customs. Yeah, that's also accurate, pretty much. Maybe a little concern for their history and their customs, but not much. Definitely the burning their lands. This is a great point. I mean, it reminds us that, not everybody is so excited about the Targaryens. A lot of what we've seen is the Targaryen point of view. And when from their point of view, everybody's not going to show their angry face. They're going to be like, yes, I love you, king and queen. I bow before you. But in private, they're like, those guys suck. This is what we're seeing. We're seeing in private moment where they're saying what they really think. This is not what they would say in front of the world. They would behave and act all nice and chivalrous, just kind of like what's been said about Maekar. So this is seen as in the book, but they lean into it more. And it's very fitting with what we just saw. Like, people rejoice when Egg dies, right? Because of things like this. People just hate the Targaryens. It isn't because they hate him personally. They're just like, yeah, another Targaryen's gone. He says each one has been worse than the last. They're just blah, 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 right? Then that line about... Yeah, go ahead.
That's another thing that the perspective we've seen in the past of the Targaryens was when they were more beloved. It was at a more prosperous, peaceful time for the land. And never mind, even maybe people might have been, enthralled with the dragons. But then I don't even know the details. Just minor side note. I'm trying to keep myself from being spoiled on the happenings of the Targaryen, the House of the Dragon time period, But one way or the other, we already see dragons just blowing up cities, you know what I mean? And I do know that there are some more tyrannical leaders follow up after that. So this moment in time, Targaryens are less loved than the moment in time we're seeing things from the Targaryen perspective.
Yes.
One after another. Each one worse than the last, kind of the way.
And frankly, A Song of Ice and Fire, let's remember, the Targaryens are not in power anymore. There's like not a lot of memory of their rule. It's just, and it's Aerys, which is not, he's about as bad as it gets. So we don't have like the current perspective, except like you said in House of the Dragon. But House of the Dragon of the three shows is by far the most rooted in royalty only. Like, it's the most royal focused, so that you get less of the common people's opinion. It does have common folks, we got the dragon seeds and things like that, but they become more like royals and less like commoners. Whereas this is a show where the royal becomes more and more common. It's kind of going the opposite direction. So I really like Raymond's delivery on that. I continue to be enamored with him, and this comes back with, got a little carried away there.
Yeah, that was good. I was thinking almost exactly that as he was going up. I was like, man, this guy's not holding back.
It's just like, and he got that was so funny, like, and brilliant. Like, I got that part from the one part about finishing on their, not having more children is the gist of that part.
Yeah.
Is like, that relates to it. It's like, yes, stop having more of these kids. Like, stop it. No more Targaryens. And the fact that he heard that from his elders, and this is something that's passed down, this dislike of them, all the way back to the Field of Fire, which this is a Reach house. A lot of Fossaways probably died in the Field of Fire. You could look at other houses, like maybe Lionel Baratheon doesn't mind as much, because he's a Baratheon. He descends from the house that took over, right? He's part Durandon, but he's part Valyrian, right? Because of that. These guys are pure Reachmen and have been for thousands of years. So their view is like, yeah, they literally burned like the people who ruled us for thousands of years and our family as well.
Yeah, he's not wrong entirely, but it's still such a extreme political view to just like come out the gate with and just like lay it dunk. It's, treasonous is what it is, right? And so they sit there so awkwardly for a beat, which was just a great comedic moment that I think, despite this being, a fantasy pseudo-medieval world, it's still something that people watching it can relate to, a time that they were with someone and someone said some out-of-pocket thing like about something political or about someone that right? And you're just like, I don't know what to say to that.
It's the how do you really feel type.
Yeah, tell me how you really feel. Yeah, that's exactly that. So I thought it was a really, really funny scene. Great delivery. I love this guy's accent so much. Just, I really like Raymond.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Sean Thomas. So as far as the reveal or the start of the reveal, it's almost exactly word for word from the novel. They added one word, I think. It was... instead of Aerion is vain and cruel, it's Aerion is just vain and cruel. He just added the word just. They nailed it. It was perfect. Egg runs in just as he's about to say, and his youngest, Sir Duncan. Yeah, exactly like the book. Loved it because there's no notes on the book version, so there's no reason to change it. And I'm glad that once again they didn't feel the need to change it just because it was perfect, just like the book version. So let's move on to that. An egg hatches at the puppet show. So let's not forget, Aerion has his horse taken away from him and given to Sir Humphrey. So his plan, such as it was, backfired. Like he wanted to make people scared of him, and really they just look at him as weak and cowardly. And then he gets his horse taken away too, which is like, I'm the prince, I'm the dragon. Like, how dare you do that? I should be allowed to do what I want. So his pride was very touched. He should have been seen as better just because. It's very Joffrey-like. It's petulance. It's like, my reputation is more important than these other things, even your life. That is the most important thing. The dragon ought not lose. The way he says that that's very like Viserys-like, But it's also, Joffrey kind of had that moment too with Marillion, where he's like, yeah, sing those lyrics that you were singing in the bar, and then, okay, fingers or tongue, you get to lose one or the other. Yeah, you could totally picture Aerion doing this. In fact, Aerion almost knocks all of Dunk's teeth out, which is, similar to pulling out your tongue, I guess, in a way. So he believes he's justified. Like, Aerion thinks he's justified. He doesn't think that, hey, I'm going to teach them a lesson through cruelty and fear. He thinks that this is my right. Again, like Viserys, like it's his. He's justified because of who he is and what he is. But as you said, Sean, early on, there are things that are unique about him that are not Joffrey or Viserys. He has some amount of competence, even though he's kind of cowardly. I mean, he's no Baelor and he's certainly no Maekar, but he's not propped up like Prince Valar either. They're not trying to they don't need to make him look good. He's peevish that Valar is getting that treatment. And he kind of calls him out a little bit for it, but not loudly. He says, I won't embarrass you today, cousin. In the book, he just laughs, but I think they changed that because laughing is too emotional. They want him to be so flat and emotionless, and laughing is emotional. What he would have done. Now let's think about what Aerion would have done. Aerion's plan here was to tell his father, oh, hey, the puppeteer was treasonous. I did what any Targaryen should do. But his plan had to change when Egg showed up, because all of a sudden there's a witness that's of equal station to him. Mm-hmm. And see, that's why people are confused about why Egg ran to Duncan. In the book, he clarifies, I couldn't run to the castle, it's too far away. But also, Duncan can stop Aerion. He can't stop Aerion. Egg can't stop Aerion. Egg can stop the guards. He can order them what to do. He can also, they'll also stop because Aerion won't order them to do anymore because he knows at that moment that Egg will tell. And So he can order the guards around, but he can't stop Aerion. So he needs Dunk to stop Aerion. He can't order Aerion to stop. So that's why that works out the way it does. Couple other points, and then I'll let y'all weigh in on this very important scene. I definitely loved, like you said, Sean, Finn Bennett's emotionless, arrogant cruelty, just on point. The silence, the speaking softly reminds me a little bit of Roose Bolton. Just the lack of emotion. There's like a spectrum of villains. You have the Joker on one side, extremely loud, animated, emotional. On the other side, you have Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men, who is just like the silent, flat, very intimidating and sinister guy. This is what Aerion is channeling more of that, I think, without as much competence. Even though he's more competent than, say, a Valar, he's no Anton Chigurh in terms of that. And there's things that you can't match with the written word, even as good as George is, like things like certain expressions on your face, and just the emotions of the moment are hard to capture on a book, that the ways that this scene did very well, which is important to for an adaptation to pull these moments off well. All right, I'll have some more to say, but let me turn it over to y'all. Sean, you go first.
One thing I want to point out is the once again from the behind the scenes thing, that Finn, was that the name of the actor that played Aerion? And the director, I think her name was Sarah. They sort of decided that in this moment that he was curious. He was like genuine, like, oh, weird. This guy just sacrificed his life for some woman. Wow, why would someone do that? Like, it was like, rather than like, oh, angry, and he still felt he needed some retribution, but he still found it fascinating that someone would behave this way.
It's like pulling the wings off a fly type fascinating.
Yeah, you're doing something cruel, and curious about the result, and but quickly like, oh, whatever the result, kill this guy now. Like, you're still being cruel in the end. But it's still so different than going off the rails, yelling and temper and all. It's in a way, I think it's more ominous or sinister or whatever. Another thought about Egg, because that is something that has flickered through my head, is that if he had just, when it first started happening, just announced, hey, I'm the prince, stop that brother, it doesn't reveal himself to Dunk, but it still stops what's happening. But I don't know if it stops.
Everyone in the camp would then not be talking about it, though. If he reveals himself, Dunk would find out. Like,
Doug would find
there's
out,
a room
right?
full of witnesses. Yeah, like all the crowd is there. Yeah.
And I don't know how much he's trying to hide it from just Dunk or from everyone, and how much of it is just like a literary. It's a good moment from an entertainment perspective, which has a similar result. I guess the result is that the thing that happens that maybe Egg didn't consider, and again in the book it is explaining he didn't have time to run anywhere else. That Dunk was just nearby, and he was the one person he knew we could go and would do the right thing. But it puts Dunk in this position now, that because Dunk came in and did the right thing, now he's probably going to be killed, where if he just revealed himself, it doesn't put Dunk in danger. Or if he goes to get some other guard or whatever else, I can see.
But it doesn't save Tanzel if he doesn't, right? Like Aerion, that was my point. He can't save Tanzel by just revealing himself without someone else there. He needs Dunk or someone else large to stop Aerion.
I'm not sure, but yeah, you might be right, because even if he does tell on Aerion to Maekar, then Aerion says, yeah, she was treasonous. She killed the dragon. Why are they even doing a show?
It's his word versus his. Yeah.
Right. And even Egg wouldn't necessarily argue, no, she didn't. Maekar just gets to decide what's treasonous or not, and probably will be on the side of his older son. What's he going to... Anyway, one way or the other, aside from all that, I like the idea that this might be like a flaw, a plot point error or whatever. I still think there's this other factor that's not being considered. Dunk is Egg's friend. They've just been hanging out all these days and bonding and getting close and sharing their time, and they're both friends with Tancel. Like, I don't think Egg went through this, if I do X, then Y, if I do Y, then D, and then the result to be blah, blah, blah. Then he's like, oh my God, I gotta go get dunked. I just think he had.
Oh yeah, he's 9 years old.
Go get his friend.
Yeah. It would be unrealistic if he was.
Think out the implications. He just went and got his friend that he knew would do the right thing, and it turned out to be bad in a way for Dunk. I mean, obviously the whole story's got to go, but it most likely was the only way to save Tencel. And you saw like there was another person laying on the ground, I don't know, incapacitated, and someone's crying over them. He might have already punched or kicked or severely injured or maimed or even killed another person already in this process. Never mind, he just destroyed their careers, right? All their puppets are kicked and burned and on the floor. Like, I mean, there's trouble beyond her broken finger. You know what I mean? Like, it's this Arian is just wreaking havoc all over the place.
Yeah, well, let me add something to that, Sean, because this is an important point about Arian as a character, which is that he knows what he's doing with that. He is trying to end her career. This is very intentional cruelty. He did the same thing to Harold Harding. He ended his jousting career. That guy broke, I mean, well, as it turns out, he didn't, but Harding will be killed in the trial, so we don't know whether he would have been able to continue he's like, I can still ride with a broken leg. But anyway, that's what he was. So maybe he failed to end his career, but that's what he was trying to do. Like, in a sense, he's like, yeah, I want to win. I want to show up. I want to prove myself and inspire fear. But I also want to do it in a way that is just really cruel and end this guy's career, like the maximum cruelty. It's less cruel to kill the guy than it is to turn them into some shadow of what they were.
He's exerting his authority is one thing that's happening here. And that's one way. If you killed the guy, that's one thing. But to end the guy's career, that should see the power I have over you.
And the fingers are so important for your puppetry. It's like very precise. And so, yeah, it's particularly evil. And that's part of what sets Dunk off. Let's have the book version for comparison. Oh, yeah, of course. Ashaya, you go ahead. Sorry, I skipped over you.
Yeah. I wanted to say, I pulled it up here that you can see that it is her uncle on the ground, which makes sense because you think a man is going to come up and try to brutalize his family member and her male family member, like any family member isn't going to stand up for her. He's part of the production, so it makes sense that Arian handled him first, and so that's probably her aunt crying over him. You could imagine, right? And then he turns to Tencel to again cripple her and stop her in her livelihood and stop her from being able to do puppetry. And now I'll read it and say some more thoughts after that.
Yeah, here's the book version of that. You can see just how close it hews, just like so many other scenes.
One man-at-arms was dangling the puppets of Florian and Jonquil from his hands as another set them afire with a torch. 3 more men were opening chests, spilling more puppets on the ground and stamping on them. The dragon puppet was scattered all about them, a broken wing here, its head there, its tail in 3 pieces. And in the midst of it all stood Prince Arian, resplendent in a red velvet doublet with long dagged sleeves, twisting Tancel's arm in both hands. She was on her knees, pleading with him. Arian ignored her. He forced open her hand and seized one of her fingers. Dunk stood there stupidly, not quite believing what he saw. Then he heard a crack and Tencel screamed. And here's where I like to say that Peter Claffey did an amazing job in this role as like showing like the beast unleashed, you know,
looks
his
like the
anger.
Hulk. Yeah,
he really does. He really looks so angry and he's so big and he just tosses him and it's so satisfying to see him just like handily dispense of him, and then so scary to see Arian be able to, you know, almost just knock out all of his teeth if Egg had just been a few moments later, right? And so I thought that was just really good acting by Peter Claffey, really good staging, really good directing in terms of how they like did the zooming in kind of on a dolly, like to go into Arian with Tencel, you know, and like show this intensity. I thought the directing was very good, which is why I want you to put some respect, Sean, on Sarah Adina Smith's name, because she was a director for Legion. You love Legion, so that's has that under her belt. She also directed the movie Buster's Malheart. I don't know if you saw that, Sean. Starred Rami Malek. It was really good. I liked it. I think she's a great director, and I think she showed her chops here. I think she did a lot of really cool shots from like the beginning with Egg. Like they had a lot of like drone shots, again crane shots, or like really high above, and he looks so tiny. I think it's really beautiful shots in this episode in general.
Can I say one other thing in line with what you're talking about there, Shea? I appreciate that this didn't turn into some extended over-the-top 8-minute action scene of Dunk beating up 38 dudes, right? 3 guys jumped on him, and as big and strong as Dunk is, 3 grown men is hard to. It's hard to. You can't just shed that off. And it's so many movies and TV shows. It would have taken 13 guys, and they would have been doing backflips and running all over the place. It would have been just a bunch of nonsense action. It's all pointless. This just showed us what it needed to. We're entertained enough by the conflict of the heart, right? The dilemma that's been set up, the person trying to do the right thing. We don't need this over-the-top action to make this good. I'm so glad they didn't go there. So many shows do, and it upsets me so much. I'm loving the show, and I'll give credit to Sarah for it.
Hell yeah.
Can I also say the other favorite editing, directing moment was this ending sequence, which made Aziz and I laughed so hard every time we watched it. The dramatic music as it goes from each person's face. It was just such a perfect beat. I can't get enough of it. It goes, and I love that Raymond's in there.
Yeah, Raymond runs in with Stefan and some
sword
guards.
In hand. Raymond was ready.
Just like the book. The book says that. Raymond runs in with men at arms and Stefan's with him, and they don't draw attention to that, but it's there in the book.
And I like that the last 2 shots are of Egg, right? Like it cuts between everyone a few times to a comedic effect, and then it cuts to Egg. Egg looks right at Dunk. Dunk looks at Egg, and it does kind of a pull out of them in this dramatic way, but really just showing what will Dunk's reaction be? That is what they're emphasizing here, which I just really great editing, directing, music, design, sound design, just all around. I loved this sequence.
I'm glad you brought it up because I'm so with you. I loved it. It's especially in context of other stuff we've seen from these maybe questionable opening sequences that they're I don't know, whether they're setting themselves apart or adding a layer of absurdity or maybe even a little bit mocking the pretentiousness of the original Game of Thrones or whatever. That this scene is sort of self-aware of its over the top dun 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 big reveal, and the music and it cuts. It is sort of a standard thing to do, but it's sort of a cliche thing to do. So they push the cliche to make it to the point of humor, but also on top of all that, which I appreciate enough. But given what the director Sarah said in the behind the scenes thing, they wanted this to be more of a focus on what this means for Dunk and Egg's relationship than a big reveal, especially because a high percent of people watching this we already know the reveal, and so
we had some Unsullied who were shocked,
to be excited about. What's that?
We had Unsullied who were shocked that we watched with our roommate and a friend. They were both here, and they go, "What? He's a Targaryen?" Yeah, they were so surprised.
I think knowing it, I tell me if those people go back and rewatch it, because I think they're I think it's something Martin is so good at is. There's a mystery there that you don't even know that you're trying to figure out. And once it's revealed and you go back, you're like, oh, they were just telegraphing it the whole way. Yeah.
I've heard theories from people who thought that maybe the big mystery was that Egg was like Bran. He was prophetic, or that he, was old. He was ancient, Some people thought there was a mystery about Egg but went the other direction. So even people who were maybe had some suspicion didn't necessarily think of it.
So the last point here for me anyway is how well they preserved a lot of these fun details, a lot of these minor details too. I think obviously the important things are the conflict and the character stuff, but again, I just appreciate how much they kept intact from the novella. As well, the implications of what's going to come, and I liked how Arian, one of his reactions is to stand up and go, oh, when he sees Egg come in and start giving orders, he's like, it's almost emotional but he's not very emotional. So it's like that's an even bigger surprise to him than what Dunk did, perhaps potentially. Well, there's all sorts of surprising things happening here.
It was kind of a Scooby-Doo moment. He's like, I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you pesky kid.
Exactly.
This one little
he was
brother.
Deflated. Yeah, this fun is spoiled. Now I don't get to torture these people. You're gonna tell on me.
How many times has Egg been a snitch, been a narc on Arian? Probably more than a few times before. Maybe sometimes Egg was like, "It's not worth me doing that because I get, punished by Arian for all the times that I snitch on him."
Can I bring up a quick little aside? It's killing me. I can't remember who said this, but recently someone. And I never heard this before. I'm not sure how true it is or what people might think about this, but a snitch isn't just someone that tells on someone else. It's someone that was in cahoots with someone else. Like two people rob the bank together, and then one of those two people tells on the other. That's the snitch has to have been guilty in the first place.
I don't know if I think that that's true. I think if I dug into dictionary definitions, I think there's lots of examples of people who snitched and were not involved, that they witnessed their sibling do something bad, for example, and they snitched on them.
I think that's... I know people definitely use it the way you're saying, Shea, but I think the difference is supposed to be that's like tattletaling.
Yeah,
when you're not involved. I think there's supposed to be a difference between when you're involved and not.
It's actually funny,
whistleblower, or I don't know.
Because I'm thinking of a show that I've been rewatching ahead of the revival. I've been rewatching Malcolm in the Middle, one of my favorite shows. Also very relevant to, I think, these kids. It's kind of a bunch of boys, right, growing up in a dysfunctional household. Anyways, there's an episode where Bryan Cranston, tells his youngest son Dewey, who's tattling on someone, who's snitching, and he goes, "Now, Dewey, what's the rule? Only snitch if I've been asked to." Don't say it out of the blue. Only if you've been asked.
A point we've discussed in the past, a concept, is the kind of things that you should get mad at, like having a internal priority for what matters most, and the people who have the quote-unquote best internal priorities are people who get mad at the things that are the worst and don't get caught up with things that are lesser. And this is a good example of that. Dunk is mad at what Arian is doing, and as a true knight personality, no chance, no choice, right? He has to do it. He doesn't even think about it. And this is just a sign of what kind of person he is. And it comes up again when he's about to get curb stomped and lose all his teeth. Egg runs up, and Dunk is like, no, don't. He's worried about Egg. He's not worried about himself, even though he's about to have something awful happen to himself. And this really shines through as to what kind of person he is. And it makes Egg love Dunk even more, just as he's worried about what Dunk thinks about him now. All right, any final thoughts before our little outro here, folks, and then our trivia and poll reveals?
I liked the puppetry scenes. I liked how they did the dragon blood and the dragon flame. And the BTS, they talk about how they used kind of a real... it's kind of like a pollen, kind of like a plant matter thing to do the fire, and they thought that they were tickled by that because it was very medieval of them, and I was tickled by it as well, that it was like more similar to something they actually could have done. And they showed about how they made the dragon out of like a leather material on the outside. So I love the BTS, and I was pretty pleased with Sermon of the Mirror Shield and this big dragon.
A little prediction here we have to make. It's a hopeful prediction, because if it sticks by the book, we won't see Tanzel again. She just cuts and runs, understandably, given what happened. We're hoping for a farewell scene, even if Dunk isn't a part of it, just seeing her leave rather than just we never see them again.
See her give the shield to Raymond. I don't know. Yeah. Someone she knows Dunk knows.
Oh, that's true. They haven't even given the shield yet.
She can just leave the shield there and he comes and finds it, but I would like to see her give it to Dunk or someone else.
Yeah, that might be how we see her send off. Yeah. Anyway, we hope for something like that. So I wanted to finish with a point about songs. There are 2 songs in this one. Songs are obviously more a part of this show than perhaps other ones, and that makes sense. We're getting more of a look at the common folk. They're more likely to do some singing here and there. It's a little, undignified for the royals to do things like this, I suppose, and a lot of the nobility.
Also, in the other series, a lot of times we're seeing people in like secret meetings or royal gatherings. It's settings that songs aren't as appropriate for, where this is constantly appropriate for a song. Right?
And to be fair, too, they did remove some songs that could have been there. Like, for example, in the scene where Arya and Gendry and Hot Pie get discovered by the Brotherhood, it's Lem and Anguy and Tom O'Sevens are singing as they stroll along. That's why Arya and them hide, because they hear the singing. I don't think they had the singing in that show version of the song. They certainly had some songs in both shows, but it feels like the pace here is going to outstrip both shows really quickly at this rate. And on that subject, here's something I missed. There was that flashback scene from episode 2. You'll recognize what I'm talking about as I read the quote from the novella. Only a few days past, he had been singing as they rode, the old song about going to Gulltown to see a fair maid. But instead of Gulltown, he'd sung of Ashford. Off to Ashford to see the fair maid. Hey ho, hey ho, Dunk thought miserably as he dug. So we remember that scene. You have Sir Arlen singing, hey ho, come on, Dunk, he says, sing along with me. So that wasn't one I was even thinking about as yet another singing moment, but it's both in the book and the show. And this makes me think about one of the biggest songs we have to look forward to that might, if it's done well, which so far their track record's great. Like I said, there weren't a lot of songs in the originals, but some of the ones they did were absolute bangers. They nailed Reigns of Castamere. They nailed Jenny's song. And we have 1,000 Eyes in One to look forward to. That's a song, in-world song. No one's ever put it to tune in a way that I thought was super memorable, or maybe I haven't heard some of the versions that are out there, but we're going to get an official version, not this year, but next year or the year after, and that's exciting to think about. The future of music in the show is bright. Our trivia question. How old is Arion here in the year 209? As I said, there's no precise answer. It's a 3-year range. 3 correct answers. Those 3 correct answers are 16, 17, or 18. Dunk himself is about 17, so yeah, it's interesting to note that they're both the same age. As for favorite moments, what were your favorite Dunk and Egg moments?
Can I say... My bad. I should have changed one of the poll options. People did not know what Hello Operator referred to. And I still don't think it would have done much better, but it definitely would have done a little bit better. I think Aziz and I both thought that was... Everyone knew it, but that is not true. So my bad. Yeah.
Anyway, so Westeros Hello Operator actually came in last on this poll. Retirement Plan got 24%. Breaking Down Three-Fingered Alice was second with 30%, and the breakfast sandwich plus the impressions of each other was first with 35%. So there was no slam dunk winner here, which we all kind of predicted because all these scenes were good. It's really hard to pick, and you all apparently feel similarly. Appreciate the participation.
I think it's unfair that breakfast sandwich impressions won because it was 2 incredible scenes put to one. So I'm not surprised that one won.
And part of the reason I did that is because I couldn't decide which one to cut. I would have had to cut one of them because I can only do 4 choices. And I was like, I can't. I'm not going to combine those.
I would have cut Retirement Plan, You Can Stay With Me. However, I clearly would have been wrong to cut that because it was the third and most answered.
Well. Yeah. Okay, so we will be, like I said, don't forget the episode airs Thursday night / Friday very early morning, so we will not be doing a preview episode this week, but presumably everything will be back to normal the week after. We'll be back on our regular schedule. We have been re-releasing our Hedge Night episodes that include Sean. It's a read-through. We did it several years ago, and those are releasing every Thursday. They've been remastered. They sound a lot better. We have much better technology for editing than we had back when those were recorded, and we're able to retroactively apply some of that. So check out the Hedge Night replays or watch them the first time if you haven't seen them yet.
Question.
Or listened to them yet.
Was this was mine and Aziz's favorite of the 3. Was it your favorite of the 3, Sean?
What was your favorite?
The episode.
This episode. Was it your favorite of the 3 or no? No, okay.
Sorry, I said, I'm not sure is what I meant
you're not
to
sure.
say.
That's fine. I wanted a quick answer. I don't want to get too far afield. I just wanted to know if you had a yes or no. So
it inspired the most excitement in me, I guess I'll say, but that isn't necessarily what makes something my favorite. So
yeah. Cool. You can think about it a little more. Super chat from Jillsville sends a sticker. Appreciate that. Well, thank you to you as well, and or you're welcome. Both, really. We also have episodes on Bloodraven, which I'm thinking about because I'm wearing this great Bloodraven shirt. So check those out if you are so inclined. You can very easily stay immersed in this time period, this subject matter, by browsing our catalog, especially if you know where to look. So we will see you all again very soon. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being a big part of this fandom. And we are very much looking forward to what's next. This show just keeps delivering, and we expect the second half of the season to be just as strong.
I had one last quick thing to point out.
Do it.
Robert Reisling, when he was talking to Egg, I thought it was
Robin.
humorous how... Robin, not Robert.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Of
But
course.
you were thinking of Sweet Robin. No, it's just funny. But yeah, Robin. Yeah, go on.
I thought it was interesting, humorous, how he referred to himself not only in the third person, but also as we. Do you remember that? Which makes me think he might be part of the pluribus hive.
Of course, you had to get that in.
I actually thought of one last thing, too. There was one small change from the 5-on-5 that didn't pick up on until it was revealed this episode, which is that in the novel, Andrew Ashford and Robert Ashford lose in the first tilt. But they both do well. They both, like, their father is proud of how they did. Robert loses to Lionel Baratheon, so like, oh, well, that figures. And Andrew does really well against Sir Tybolt Lannister. They changed it so that Andrew wins against Tybolt Lannister. Otherwise, he wouldn't have still been jousting, right? He would have been out of it. So they had to change that in order to set up this other stuff, which, again, we don't know where they're going with that. Very curious. One last idea on that is maybe it will be revealed that Dunk turned that down, and that will show his character, and that people will respect that, or something will go in his favor because of that. Anyway, that's a lot of extra add-ons when we were trying to say goodbye. So let's say goodbye for real. Thanks to Bran for our wonderful intro, Marco Klarfeld for the maps that you see behind us, and in many of our other episodes. And we'll see you next time for more. You know what to do until then. Valar reread us, and then want to throw in a Valar rewatch us too.